Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the issue, particularly in North America, but it could apply elsewhere, of out of wedlock births amongst the Black community now, or society. Now, depending on whose numbers you look at, the amount of births that are out of wedlock are claimed to be up as high as 75%. So 75% of all births to Black women in North America are births where, to a single mother, there's no husband or even de facto partner. In many cases, the genetic associate, if you like, in that procreation is unknown. It could be one of many, and or names that can't even be remembered or have been forgotten or perhaps never known. So this is I think it's a statement of the obvious to say it presents a challenging societal situation there. So what can be done about it? Now, going back to, for those who are old enough, you'll remember Bill Clinton getting all hairy-chested or trying to be all hairy-chested and muscular into the cameras with the national news folks there, cameras and everything, and he's surrounded by all these Black women, and he's going, "We'll find you. We'll make sure you pay your damn child." So we didn't say damn child support. The thrust of it was, "We'll make sure you pay your damn child support, and we're going to come and get you. We're coming after you. You better watch out, motherfuckers." And it was one of those absurd, hairy-chested, I'm a big tough man. I'm going to look after those little itty bitty girlies. Oh, and it's all pathetic when politicians do that, try to be all hairy-chested. Maybe it works for them electorally, I don't know. It comes across to me as stupid, some dweeb attempting to be a hero, that sort of thing. Anyway, it was seen at the time, and all the or many of the editorials going around was the big panacea. If they could convince Black men that they would have to pay child support no matter what, then these Black men would stay with the woman, marry her, or at least have a long-term de facto relationship, but marriage was the preferable outcome, and they would stay together, and the children would have parents. There'd be no single mothers. It would reduce the amount of government benefits that needed to be paid, and so on and so forth. So that was the idea. This was the panacea. This was the golden fleece, the unicorn just around the next corner. If we can just get this damn child support happening then, and find these guys and extract the child support, then that's it. That will sort everything out. Now, anyone who knows anything about the dynamics of these sort of situations knows that that's absolute bullshit. But there's a lot of political sort of momentum and pressure to sort of make this happen, not only to get the child support, but to make it the golden fleece, the golden arrow that was going to solve all, the panacea. Now, whenever governments do that, they pursue an ideological outcome, which is what it was. The intentions sort of were practical, but the whole architecture of what they were attempting was ideological, as it so often is with governments when they go about things. They look at, well, what's our raison d'etre? Well, why are we doing this? What's our reason for doing this? And they come up with an ideological sort of fix-all that in their imagination and within the vapors of their mind, and many of them aren't that bright, within the vapors of their mind, they sort of create this fantasy imaginary world where everything works out. If only they could do this or get that or make such and such occur. And of course, it's quite asinine as proportions, nor do they have the brain power to put it together anyway. But nonetheless, this was it. Now, whenever governments go down this path, they start taking shortcuts. So they don't want to have to go, courts of law and judges and juries and all this sort of thing. Just get in the way. We've got a fucking ideology to go in here, and it's important. We're doing work. It makes God's work look like nothing. We are now the ultra super gods, and we're pursuing an agenda, and we're right. No matter what we do is right, and no matter what shortcuts we take, it is acceptable in pursuit of these ideological goals. And we we see the world over, communism as an example, that whenever that path is, they go down that path, there's the collateral damage is far greater than the benefit that they derive or think they're deriving. So it became quite arbitrary. So a woman comes into the child support agency or comes in to get government benefits for kid. Well, we're not going to give you benefits. And you name the biological, your biological consort for the procreation. Oh, I don't know. It could be Jamal. It could be Sansa. It could be Jerome. It could, fuck. I don't know. Okay, we got to name somebody. So let's go through these people. Okay, could it be this guy? Jerome Smith or Jamal Jones, or let's go through it. Okay, yeah. Well, this guy's got quite a good job. He's got a regular income, or he's maybe not a good job, but he's got a regular income. He's employed most of the time. Why don't we say it's him? Yeah. Now they've, the address they've got for this guy maybe was something from 10 years ago. Yeah, maybe it's not a recent address. So they'll claim they send out a letter. He doesn't respond to it immediately, assuming a letter was even sent, by the way. He doesn't respond to it. That's it. Bang, done. Administratively, doesn't have to go through a court of law and a jury and evidence, this sort of thing. No, it's an allegation. It's an administrative act in the agency. Bingo. The guy's now going to be hit with child support. And it could even be backdated by a few years. Because it's backdated now, then fines are added on. He's now a felon, but he now lives in another state. Cross state lines. What? Cross state lines while owing child support. He's a fucking criminal. FBI onto the case. So before you know it, the guy is going to be thrown in the slammer. Now, this is about the standard. So the burden of proof that the state needs to meet to initiate child support action against these unfortunate black men, the burden of proof is very, very low. I mean, it's about as low as it takes for the state to accuse, someone of being an insurrectionist or something like that. It's that. Well, you were there. You were in the United States at the time. That's all the evidence we need. You damn fascist Hitler. So anyway, they've got this very low burden of proof. Now, if Jamal figures what's going on and works it out or somehow gets to hear about it, which is in itself in the balance, and he fronts to court and goes, well, I've never seen Shaniqua before. I can't be the biological consort in this procreation. So he has to prove that. Well, prove that you were not in the state at the time. Prove you were not in the city at the time. Prove you were not in the country at the time. Prove that. So he said, well, no, that's not a problem. Look, why don't we get a DNA test and that'll prove it one way or another. Oh, no, we can't do a DNA test unless she approves it. So she has to approve the DNA test. Now, he can go through the courts to do it, but it can take him years working through the courts to get her compelled to have a DNA test to prove he's not the biological associate of that procreation. And so he's up against it. I mean, he's sucking him for years. Let's suppose he proves it. Now, these arbitrary powers of the family courts in conjunction with the child support agency activist groups is they can say, well, okay, so you've proved you're not, but look, you've been paying her child support now, under compulsion for 3 years. That's how long it's taken Jamal to get it to court, to get the DNA testing. You've been paying child support through, so therefore the child relies on it. Therefore, in the best interest of the child, the court orders that you will continue paying child support for a child that's not even yours and you knew nothing about. And that's the extent of the arbitrary powers that are within this child support thing. So now there's a few other challenges they face. Many of the men, not all, but many of the black men who are involved in procreation are very itinerant. They either have no jobs or they sort of work on the street for cash, or they are fully dependent on government benefits themselves. These sorts of things. So there's really nothing to take. So what do you do? What do you do? You take $5 a month from these people, which is about sort of what it comes to. So regardless of chasing for child support, even with the arbitrary powers and the brutish enforcement tactics, um, it still doesn't change the fact that many, if not most, of these people are unemployable or have a very intermittent income, or an income that's in the black economy effectively, on the street barter and all sorts of things like that, or drugs for cash, whatever. So there's no real opportunity to go after these people in any sense anyway. They just don't have the money. Um, and what money they may or may not have is barely traceable, if at all. So the problems facing them aren't simply a case of, as it would be in the white community, where the guy's got a steady job or has a regular income. So there's always something you can take from people like that. With people, I guess, who own nothing and who have no income and no prospects, what exactly can you do? The child support, the child support could be, we'll kill you unless you pay. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, what can you do in those situations? There's simply nothing to take, and that's how it is most of the time. So this idea that if only we can get the black guys to pay child support and suddenly all the problems will disappear is absolute nonsense, and it's just the height of idiocy to even go down that path. It sounds good to get in front of the camera, in front of all these black women behind you as you act all tough. We'll find you, we'll get you, we'll make you pay, as if they're all millionaires, sitting on shitloads of money, which is of course quite absurd. So when we look at how it was never a panacea, this child support thing. But as time has gone on, it's become more and more arbitrary and more brutish. So it's yet another example of, now I believe, another example of just runaway arbitrary ideological law that has no resemblance or has no semblance of reality, or doesn't rely on facts, and doesn't rely on hard evidence to put in place. So if it was done strictly along legal lines, categorical proof that Jamal is the biological partner of the procreation, and that's something there. Maybe the government then should have a program to give Jamal a job, so that he can pay child support. So there can be government-sponsored programs for that to get him and other men, black men, into that. Whether that would result in marriages and stable relationships is another thing. Now, there are two other aspects to this. Amongst the black community, or three other aspects, in fact, amongst the black community, whether it be in Africa or wherever in the world they are, the social structure is that one woman has many male partners. That's how it is in Africa. It's not a monogamous situation, far from it. So this idea that a woman may have 5 children by 5 different men is not unusual in Africa. And there's in terms of lineage, in many ways, it's quite a matrilineal rather than a patrilineal society there, as it is in a number of the Pacific Islanders as well. So this is something they've brought with them from Africa. It's the idea of the white patriarchy and monogamy, this sort of thing. It's very much a Western white construct, and you don't really see it much outside of sophisticated, advanced societies. So societies that live primarily on subsistence, these sorts of things, tend to have this multiple partners per woman. And it's not considered unusual. The other thing that I mean, if you look at, say, South Africa today, for example, it has one of the highest rates of pre-teen births. That's 11 and 12-year-old black girls giving birth, and there can be up to 1,000 a year there. It seems astonishing. It seems almost impossible, but again, this is not. If you look at sort of black history, this is not unusual. So if we also look in the United States at the amount of young girls who have children, and also, by the way, this idea of the abortions, number of abortions, the proportion of black abortions to white abortions is quite stark, and the abortion clinics tend to be in very poor, down-at-heel black areas where young girls are becoming pregnant, 13 years old, becoming pregnant, and an abortion is considered on balance, the best sort of solution to a social problem that just won't go away. Now, there's a huge debate as to whether or not that constitutes, in some cases, some people rather see it as like child murder. Other people see it as a sensible course of action given those circumstances. I have no view on that. I can sort of see both points of view and both positions on that, and each argument has its merits. But how you make the problem go away, of course, is yet another conversation again, or how you deal with it, and there's another conversation again. Do you want 12 and 13-year-old black girls bringing up children? Is that a good idea? Maybe in a commune or something that might be possible. So there's that. The other thing is black women are notorious for using pregnancy as a way of getting the guy. So if they want to land the guy and sort of bind the guy to them, they'll forget to use contraceptive or something like that. Oh, by the way, I'm pregnant, and in the hope that that'll sort of land the guy and keep him in under control. And of course it doesn't, and it's but why black women continue to use that as a ploy is quite beyond me. But so it's a complicated thing. It's not simply push this button, child support. That's it. It's not that. It's far more than that. But if we look at, say, when blacks were allegedly terribly oppressed, the wicked evil whites doing bad things. Well, before sort of 1970, say, or maybe late 1960s, or probably before President Lyndon Johnson's Great Society, maybe so 65, 66 around. Before that, black marriages were there's a lot of intact marriages, and there were on a relative basis very few children born out of outside of wedlock or to single mothers. So, but since the Great Society, this emancipation, this freedom, this entitlement to victim status and all the rewards that come with it. Since then, births outside of wedlock and indeed the reduced amount of marriages, it just seems to have spiraled out of control. So in some ways, the Great Society was one of the most terrible things that could have happened to the black population in the United States. And if you look at places like Baltimore, it seems to be a situation that gets worse each year, not better. And no matter how much money is spent and how much hand-wringing by Jewish lesbian academics and so on, that the black ghetto situation appears to deteriorate just a little bit more every year, and more people are getting murdered and murdering each other, and the ghettos become less livable and even harsher, which produce children with views and attitudes that are molded and shaped by the harshness of that environment, and throwing money at it and screaming white supremacy makes no difference at all, nothing. So until in a mosaic of many problems that those things are being dealt with, it's hard to see how that situation can be changed. But the child support thing is a magic push button fix. Bullshit. It never was going to work, never did work. In fact, it made things worse. And whenever a government goes down the path of arbitrarily applied law and coercion, then it will fail time and time again. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.